The streets were unusually quiet that evening, the air thick with the weight of an approaching storm. Officer Daniels had just finished his routine patrol when he spotted a small figure standing alone near the edge of the sidewalk. At first, he thought she was waiting for someone, but as he looked closer, he realized something was off. The little girl's dress was tattered, her face smudged with dirt, and her wide, fearful eyes darted around, as if searching for help. She took a hesitant step forward, then another, until she was standing right in front of him. She couldn't have been older than 6 or 7. Daniels lowered himself to her level, speaking softly. "Hey there, are you lost?" The girl's lips trembled as she glanced over her shoulder, then back at him. She took a deep breath, and in a voice barely above a whisper, she said 2 words that sent chills down his spine. His body tensed immediately. Without wasting a second, he grabbed his radio. "I need backup now," he said, his voice urgent. The little girl's hands shook as she clung to the edge of his uniform, her eyes pleading with him to act fast. Something was very wrong. And whatever had led this child to him, alone and terrified, was only the beginning of a much bigger mystery. What had she seen? And more importantly, who was she running from? Officer Daniels kept his voice steady, but his mind was racing. The little girl clung to his sleeve, her tiny fingers gripping the fabric as if letting go would mean losing her last bit of safety. He could feel her trembling, her breath quick and uneven. Whoever she was running from, she was terrified. He gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's okay, you're safe now." "What's your name?" he asked, but she only shook her head, her eyes darting past him toward the dimly lit street behind them. Daniels turned his gaze in the same direction, scanning for any signs of movement. Empty sidewalks, parked cars, and flickering streetlights. It all looked normal. But something told him they weren't alone. He took a step forward, instinct kicking in. "Did someone hurt you?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. The girl's lips parted as if she was about to speak, but then a noise, a distant car door slamming, made her flinch. Without thinking, she pressed herself against Daniels, her fingers tightening around his sleeve. He didn't need any more proof. He reached for his radio again. "Backup en route?" he asked, his tone sharper now. "ETA 3 minutes," a voice crackled back. 3 minutes. But looking down at the girl's panicked face, Daniels knew that might not be fast enough. Whatever she had seen, whoever she was afraid of, they might be closer than he thought. Officer Daniels knew he had to keep the little girl calm, but the urgency in her eyes told him that danger was closing in fast. He positioned himself protectively in front of her, his hand resting near his holster as he scanned the street. A shadow moved in the distance, just beyond the glow of a flickering street lamp. It could have been nothing, or it could have been exactly what he feared. The girl's breath hitched as she tugged at his sleeve again, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're coming." Daniels didn't waste a second. He crouched down, keeping his voice low but firm. "Who's sweetheart? Who's coming?" Her tiny hands clenched into fists, and for a moment, he thought she might cry. But instead, she looked past him toward the street. "The men. They said I couldn't tell." Daniels felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't just a lost child. She was in real danger. He needed to get her somewhere safe, fast. The nearest patrol car was parked just down the block, but moving her now could draw attention. He glanced toward the darkened alleyway nearby, wondering if they were already being watched. His radio crackled. "Backup is almost there." "What's your status?" He hesitated. He didn't want to say too much over the radio, in case someone else was listening. Instead, he replied, "We're not alone." The girl's grip tightened. The shadows in the distance shifted, and Daniels realized they were out of time. Daniels could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears as he glanced around. The street, once eerily quiet, now felt suffocating, as if danger lurked behind every parked car and darkened doorway. The little girl was clutching his arm so tightly that her fingers trembled against his sleeve. He could feel her fear, and it only made his instincts sharpen. A sudden noise, a scuffle of feet against pavement, made him spin around, his hand instinctively resting on his holster. A figure loomed just beyond the glow of a streetlight, partially hidden by the shadows. Then another, and another. They weren't just being watched. They were being surrounded. The girl whimpered, shrinking closer to him. Daniels took a slow step backward, positioning himself between her and the approaching figures. His radio crackled again, but he didn't dare reach for it now. Any sudden movement could set something off, and he had no way of knowing how many more of them were waiting in the dark. Then a voice called out, low, calculated, "Walk away, officer. This isn't your fight." Daniels felt the weight of the moment press down on him. His training told him to de-escalate, to wait for backup, but his instincts screamed otherwise. He had seen that kind of confidence before, the kind that came from knowing the odds were in your favor. The girl tugged on his sleeve again, whispering just 2 words. Words that sent ice through his veins. "They know." Daniels felt a cold chill run down his spine. The girl's whisper, barely audible, sent a wave of urgency through him. Asterisk, they know. Asterisk, but who? And how much did they know? He didn't have time to ask. The figures in the shadows were closing in, their slow and deliberate movements a clear warning. His mind raced. Backup was still minutes away, minutes he might not have. He needed to act now. "Get behind me," he murmured to the girl, keeping his voice steady. But instead of moving, she hesitated. Her wide eyes darted past him, locking onto something, or someone, behind him. Daniels turned just in time to see a black SUV roll to a stop at the curb. The back door swung open, and a man in an expensive suit stepped out. Unlike the others, he didn't hide in the shadows. He wanted to be seen. The tension in the air shifted. The men surrounding Daniels stepped back slightly, giving space to the newcomer. That's when it hit him. This wasn't just some random threat. This was organized, calculated. The girl wasn't just in danger. She was the key to something much bigger. The man in the suit spoke, his voice smooth but laced with authority. "Officer Daniels, let's not make this difficult. Hand her over, and you can walk away." Daniels' grip tightened on his radio. The girl clutched his sleeve again, her breathing uneven. Whatever this was, it wasn't just about her. It was about something bigger, something dangerous. And he was right in the middle of it. Daniels kept his stance firm, his mind racing through his limited options. The girl's small fingers clutched at his sleeve, her fear evident. The man in the suit took a step closer, his expression calm but eyes sharp. "Last chance, officer. You don't want to get in the way of something bigger than you." Daniels knew he had to stall. "And what exactly am I getting in the way of?" he asked, keeping his voice steady. The man smirked. "That's classified." Before Daniels could respond, a faint crackle came through his radio. Backup was almost there. He just had to hold on a little longer. But the girl, trembling beside him, did something unexpected. She took a deep breath and, for the first time, spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "I know where the others are." The reaction was immediate. The man in the suit tensed, and the men in the shadows exchanged uneasy glances. Daniels realized the girl wasn't just a witness. She was a threat to whatever they were hiding. That's why they wanted her. Then the sound of screeching tires filled the air. Police cars flooded the street, sirens blaring. The men in the shadows scattered, but the suited men remained frozen. jaw clenched as he realized he'd lost control. Officers rushed forward, securing the area. As the girl watched the chaos unfold, she turned to Daniels. "They took my family," she whispered. Daniels met her gaze, his resolve stronger than ever. This wasn't over. It was just the beginning. As the night air settled, Officer Daniels watched the girl and her brother disappear into the safety of the social worker's car. The weight in his chest eased, knowing they finally had a chance at a better life. It wasn't often that stories like this had happy endings, but tonight was different. Tonight, justice had prevailed. Back at the station, Daniels filed his report, but his mind kept replaying the moment the girl had looked up at him with hope in her eyes. She had been through so much, yet she found the courage to speak up. Without her bravery, the children in that warehouse might never have been found. He couldn't shake the feeling that she had changed something in him, too. Before heading home, he checked on the man they had arrested. The evidence was overwhelming. He wouldn't be walking free anytime soon. That was another relief. The streets were a little safer now. As Daniel stepped outside, the city felt quieter, calmer. He took a deep breath and looked up at the night sky. He knew there would always be more battles to fight, more people to protect. But for now, he allowed himself a small moment of peace. Some stories don't just end, they leave a mark. And as he got into his squad car, he realized this was one he would never forget. The girl had reminded him why he put on the badge every day, to be a voice for those who needed it most.